thank you, Natalie, for the introduction. Thanks to the Cultural Alliance and particularly President Mogline and the whole organizing team for this event. You put together a fantastic program, and I'm really, truly privileged to be part of it. I direct the ExCite Center at Drexel University. And so let me just start by showing you a quick video about the ExCite Center.
Many have wondered whether innovating is more of an art than a science, or more of a science than an art. We believe that all things being equal is exactly where innovation thrives. The ExCite Center at Drexel University, where creative expression and technology come together.
So the ExCite Center is that place at Drexel for these disciplines to come together, for technology to meet culture, for musicians to work with engineers, for fashion designers to work with roboticists. It's a non-disciplinary space that we think is laying the foundation for the future generations of innovators at Drexel. Now, I also have the honor of serving as resident technologist with Opera Philadelphia. Now, Opera Philadelphia is committed to ensuring and developing the future of opera. It's an organization, we firmly believe that artistic innovation and technological innovation go hand in hand. And there are some great upcoming productions that I just wanted to let you know about in case you hadn't heard. Next week, we're premiering Don Carlo. And then in June, it's the world premiere of Charlie Parker's Yardbird, a great, fantastic new work. So I hope you all get a chance to see that. Now, what is a resident technologist? Hopefully by the end of this talk, maybe I'll have been able to explain that a little bit. Mostly, they let me choose my own title, so that's what I assume. But my profound thanks to Opera Philadelphia and to Drexel for supporting me in trying to do something a little bit different during my sabbatical. So today, I wanted to talk about 3 points, 3 thoughts I've had about technology and culture. Obviously, we're going to hear some great stuff throughout the morning. Again, there's a fantastic lineup of speakers, and I'm so eager to hear what others have to say on this topic as well. But from my experiences, I'm going to focus on 3 points this morning. The first, which is probably inherently obvious to everyone in this room already, but that great art inspires great technology, but also great technology inspires great art. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's a virtuous circle. So we all, I think, inherently realize this, but I just thought we should make it explicit. So I'm certainly not the first one to say this. This is a wonderful quote from John Adams, the composer, the one who's still alive, not the second president of the United States. But it's a great quote about artistic creation and technological innovation. These have always moved hand in hand. This is not a new thing. All you have to do is look at history. I mean, we're going back to ancient Greece, or even further back. You think about Pythagoras. You think about Da Vinci. You think about Philadelphia's own Ben Franklin. And all these folks whose innovations in art and science, art and technology, informed one another. So it's something that's been perhaps a little bit lost in today's world, where folks started to really do hyper-focus on particular disciplines. But I think, as the participation in this room will show, it's coming back. And it's much, much needed. So, in fact, I would argue that there are probably more similarities between artistic creation and technological innovation than differences. So, this is what we're all taught, right? This is how it goes. We have a brilliant idea, right? The light bulb goes off. We create a precise specification of that idea. We formulate a detailed implementation plan. Right? We execute that plan precisely, like military precision, and then, of course, at the end, we're successful. We have a successful outcome, a project, a product, a performance. So maybe the artists in the room are thinking, well, maybe that's how it goes in technology. And maybe the technologists are thinking, well, is that how our artwork gets developed? I think we all know that this is fiction, right? That this is not at all how it goes. That usually start with some vague, very ill-formed, nebulous idea, right? We write down some initial scribblings, maybe some initial implementation. There's no implementation plan. We're just going to start doing stuff, Let's start creating something. And then we do some partial execution. But then the key that makes this a worthwhile process is that we go back, start to question our initial assumptions. Maybe that first initial scribbling wasn't the right direction. Maybe, and we'll ignore the fact that there's no implementations anyway. Just sweep that under the rug. But maybe we'll even go all the way back to that original vague, nebulous idea and rethink that. Say, hey, in building this initial prototype or this first iteration, we discovered something completely different. And then there's always the question, when are we done? We're done when we decide it's done, basically. That, there's an old saying about a PhD thesis, it's never completed, it's abandoned. But sometimes you're working with a deadline or a performance, that's when we're done, right? But to say that, it's going to be done when we've reached some arbitrary threshold, I think is not the right way to pursue things. So, let's see. And maybe the difference between sort of the half-baked project and a really good project is how we do that iteration, how we go through this process. So I would argue that these processes are actually very, very similar between artistic creation and technological innovation. So, hello, artists meet technologists, technologists meet artists, you're all the same. We all do the same things, and then none of us has a monopoly on insight into this process. That it is still it's messy, it's unpredictable, but no one discipline has all the answers. But it's through collaboration and this common understanding that we're approaching these problems using this similar process, which I will just call the creative process. That we share the same creative process. And that art and culture brings a tremendous insight to this, but technology and scientific research brings tremendous insight into this as well. So let me give you an example of that. We have some robots, and we're not afraid to use them. When we first got them, we had a tremendous support from the National Science Foundation to bring these humanoid robots from Korea. And since I do music research, we said we have to do something musical with these robots. So this is what we came up with.
Here come a old flat top teacup, moving up slowly. We got choo-choo, I bought me one holy roller. He got hair down to his knees. Got to be a joker, he just do what he plays.
Leave you hanging a little bit. You can see the video online, but in the interest of time, you can see the full video online. I want to tell you, when we started that project, we had no idea what we were doing. Absolutely none. We had these robots, we had never programmed them before, we didn't know how to do that. We knew we wanted to do something musical, we had no idea we were going to do a Beatles song. In fact, that was inspired, we did a photo shoot first. Our university news office we got the robots, they wanted to do this photo shoot. Said, hey, we have this crazy idea, we're going to shoot the robots crossing the road like the Beatles and Abbey Road. And so we did this photo shoot first. And by the way, trying to buy clothes for robots, that's a really fun activity. But from that, we said, well, okay, Beatles, Abbey Road, what's on Abbey Road? And then the ideas started flowing. And then we thought, well, what can the robots do? Well, I think we can get them to kind of do this. Right? Maybe they can hit things, right? Because that's about the limitations of what we knew how to program them. And so we thought, well, Blue Man Group does these pitch percussion things. Maybe we can do that. We had to build instruments, because you can't go to a musical instrument store and buy instruments for robots. There's not a section for that yet. We had to rearrange the piece. We had to rescore the piece, find something that would work with just 12 notes. And so we did all this in this very frenetic period. There was a lot of all-nighters pulled for this. My students built those instruments from scratch, or rescored the piece, we programmed it, we shot the video. The whole project lasted 3 weeks, and that was our outcome. So sometimes having that great sort of artistic goal, that creative vision, can really drive a tremendous amount of technological innovation. So there's a general principle that's already been alluded to that drives our efforts. And that is what we call STEAM. Not just STEM, not just science, technology, engineering, math, which we've all heard about in terms of education these days, But we firmly believe that the arts and design are crucial for innovation in the future. There's not a direct line from science and technology to innovation. You have to have that broader perspective of the arts and design. And it's not that we're just going to make our engineers go take some music classes. It's that we can integrate these things better in all of our curricula, from pre-kindergarten all the way through graduate school. Let me show you how we're trying to do that. We have a program we call, whoops. Did I lose my screen? Let's see. There we go. Oh, okay, I'm going to go back one. We have a program called Summer Music Technology. It's a high school outreach program that we bring in about 30 high school kids for 1 week and use music technology to motivate greater interest in math, science, and engineering. We do things. We build loudspeakers out of paper plates and magnets. We have them analyze musical instruments using a custom iPad app that we developed. We teach them about synthesis and sound manipulation. And the best part of the week is that they all work on an individual project. And I'm just going to show you a couple examples of, these are high school students in 1 week. This is a self-tuning, self-playing guitar.
See that? Yeah. Like there's jagged edges, so it gets caught in the strings, so it's a little harder than a real pick to actually strum the guitar, but you know. Gotta use the size, right?
So that's a simple example there of 3D printing a guitar pick, but we also 3D print musical instruments, and they do all sorts of crazy things. Those are just 2 examples of some really great projects that happen throughout the week. But again, it's just 1 week with high school kids from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is what they're able to accomplish in the span of 1 week. So I think that's a great example of the power of STEAM in action. It's just incredibly inspiring. And hopefully there's a new generation of students who are coming in, or who are going to be entering the workforce, who don't see a strict boundary between technology and art. They see them as same points on the, different points on the same spectrum. The second point I'd like to dive into today is that we want to be dazzled, right? When we in engaging in cultural experiences, we want to see something great. We want to see something virtuosic, whether that involves artistic performance or whether that involves technological prowess. And I would argue that this holds for both artists and technologists. So how do we do that? Well, when we pursue a joint project spanning technology and the arts, you really need both. You need to bring your A game in both the cultural sector and in the technological innovation, because we know when you're not bringing it. So here's one example. This is our project in my lab called the Magnetic Resonator Piano. It's an augmented grand piano. It still works like a normal grand piano, but we have electromagnets that can vibrate the strings. They don't touch the strings, they're about a quarter inch away from the strings, but using electromagnetism, we can get those strings to vibrate in ways that no other piano can, to make sounds that no other piano can. Here's what it sounds like. Mark is amazing, Grammy-nominated jazz keyboardist. And so it's working with wonderful performers. And the great thing about that past video was that that was shot 15 minutes after Mark had first sat down at the instrument. He had been practicing for weeks. He had never seen it before. He sat down 15 minutes. He's such a good pianist that he was able to discover a lot of the things he could do and then improvise right on that instrument. We've also worked with composers from Curtis, from Temple, from Penn. This is an amazing piece by Dan Shapiro, who teaches composition at Curtis, that really highlighted for me the capabilities of this instrument. This is the beginning of the second movement. The first movement is fast and light. It's completely in tune, which is going to be relevant for when I start this. longer in tune. He was able to create this very, very haunting sonic effect using the electronic to detune the piano on the fly. You could never do this with a regular piano. You can't have a technician come in the middle of a piece and detune everything and then retune it for the next piece. That's not possible. And I love this piece because it's very much a piano piece. It's not, I mean, there are electronics involved, but it's not a lot of electronic sounds. It's still very much a piano piece. So again, we're expanding the creative possibilities, expanding the creative palette for composers and performers. So it raises the question, well, how do you know that when you have virtuosic collaboration? When do you have this world-class combination of technology and art? Well, I would argue that every organization needs someone to bridge those worlds. Whether you're going to call that your chief technology officer or chief creative officer, and these people, of course, are hard to find. In fact, they're so hard to find that we have a term for them, right? In Silicon Valley, they've coined this term called a unicorn, because they're so hard to find. A unicorn in Silicon Valley is a programmer who knows how to design well, or a great designer who knows how to code, right? And they're called unicorns because they're so rare. But I will tell you, there are unicorns in this room, on this stage. Find them, embrace them, find ways to work with them. Now, of course, you can also discover them through partnering. Then we host a lot of hackathons, mixed development events at the ExCite Center. This is from a music hack day. There are great schools all around the country, the Media Lab, MIT, NYU, Integrated Technology Program, and of course what we're trying to do at the ExCite Center, that's trying to push out a new generation of techno artisans. And I'll tell you a secret. There are way more PhDs being granted than there are academic research positions available. There's a bunch of students who are going to be looking for jobs really soon, and who are very, very willing to do something that will have this sort of multidisciplinary impact. So keep your eyes out for that. My third point is that, and again, I'll be a little bit provocative here, but again, I don't think I'm saying anything that's a big surprise, is that a computer or a phone, in this case in every pocket, is not a huge distraction, but it's a tremendous opportunity. You've probably heard about the LiveNote project, our collaboration with the Philadelphia Orchestra, which of course will be the topic of our next segment, so we'll dive into the details of this then, but here's a quick sneak peek of what the app looks like. We've done collaborations with schools and with Play on Philly to do app-enhanced performances. This was a program called Remix Interactive that we did as part of the Philadelphia Science Festival last year. And then, of course, in my role with Opera Philadelphia, we've done a lot of experiments, including our Opera on the Mall. At intermission, we wrote a little web app to take control of the audience's screen so that we could do a little light show. It's kind of the 21st century version of holding up a cigarette lighter at a concert. And so we called this shot Opera's biggest selfie. But let me close with a recent story, which I think really highlights where things are going. Last week, I happened to be traveling for university business to Chile and visiting a wonderful university there, and I took in a concert while I was down there by an organization called Teatro del Lago. And they're a pretty professional training organization. They work with student musicians and singers from throughout Latin America to put on great performances. And they were doing a performance of Schubert and Mozart. And I was down there. Now, Chile, fortunately, is almost in the same time zone as here. I have a 7-year-old at home, 7-year-old boy. And bedtime for us is a really special time. And I'd been away, and I'd missed bedtime a couple nights in a row. And so I was going to bed, and I tried to FaceTime with him or call in, but I was at a concert. I couldn't do that. So here's what I was able to do. I took photos, said, this is where I am, about to hear Mozart Requiem. My wife texted me back, hey, that's my favorite piece. So then what do I do? I start sending them audio from the concert. And my son gets to listen to it, and then you can see my son's text because they're much shorter. He's starting to learn how to use emoji. But, it was awesome. Cool. Sad face. I miss you. Right, to create that sort of shared moving experience with my family from 6,000 miles away. Now, the irony of this, and here's a little bit of the recording from the concert. It was a fantastic performance. I'm probably breaking Chilean law right now. I've been playing this for you. I would definitely be breaking U.S. law if a Chilean came here to a concert and said, oh, hey, son, I want you to hear some of this. And the ushers would be on them like that, right? They would take your phone away. So we don't facilitate those sort of shared, moving experiences that the technology is affording us these days. We want to share. We are creatures, we are social creatures. We are devoted to our families. We want to facilitate experiences like this. And so I would posit to you that if your organization cannot accommodate that sort of model, that sort of sharing, then maybe you're looking in the wrong direction. So, technology is ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere, it's part of our daily lives, as is arts and culture. And so I would like to close by just pointing out, this is a great event. It's going to be a great program. I love the term TechniCulture, but it's not a separate thing. It's not TechniCulture. It's just culture. Thank you very much.